And in Sacramento, we're actually working together. I'm very proud that Republicans continue to join us in ensuring that we educate our immigrants, that we incorporate them into our community. And this is why you only have a faction of these, rogue folks that are kind of lost in time. The new reality is, and something that Marcelo says so eloquently, is whether you like it or not, California is coming to a community near you.
Could you introduce yourself, please, and your background and your education?
I've learned from the past. I'll let the city introduce my background, because they're the ones that are my clients.
Yeah, and I think that the city hired Kaiser as part of a award of bid process. We decided.
New American Dream.
Homeowners.
Suburban home. Every person having a tract of land. And why not? We have so much land. Guess what? That model is over. We're no longer building suburban tract homes. We're building very few of them. The new model is what? It's not quality of life. Where you have a single family home, you have your TV, and you have 2 cars in the garage. But it's more focused on quality of place. So we're replacing quality of life with quality of place.
I may be white, I may not be low income, but the fact of the matter is, that doesn't mean that everything has to be distributed equally and evenly, because there is such a thing as structural disinvestment and structural racism, and this is what this plan is trying to do. It's trying to contradict centuries of disinvestment.
People should realize we're in a new era. The idea of your nice little green grass getting lots of water every day, that's going to be a thing of the past.
On the 1% of the land, is that what you said, 1%? It's going to house them all together there, and they're going to love doing it because you're going to have a coffee shop on every corner, and you're going to have, all of everything they need self-contained in these little urban villages, which are absolutely essential because traffic congestion will stop them from ever leaving their village. Right. We see it today already. It's very hard to get our dean to come out of Santa Monica. He's sort of trapped on other side of the 405.
Just the extension of one lane of HOP in each direction is a $550 million project. We're talking about adding 2 lanes in each direction. And it's about 3 times that cost, but think of the capacity improvement that that brings.
I have a question. Sandbag has a budget of $120 to $130 million a year, and that is supposed to be used for transportation. But yet you are extending debt in the billions of dollars when your yearly budget is $120 to $130 million to build toll lanes. How, if you only have $120 million a year, do you expect the public to think it's okay for you to incur billions of dollars of debt that our grandkids are going to be on the hook for?
In a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated.
We only have so much groundwater, and so we're giving everyone basically a ticket for groundwater. And what we've come up with is that everyone gets 30 units. Because we only have so much water. So the question is, how do we do it? The approach that we're suggesting is that tier 1, which is 30 units, everyone gets it, that's the groundwater, and you have that. Now, if you want to use more than that, then you should start paying for the replenishment water, the more expensive water.
We're all dealing with water rationing.
Mandatory ration.
Life is changing.
We really need to embrace conservation as a way of life.
How long were your reserves last? You said you could go for so many years. How many years? For what you have right now?
Well, based on what we expect to need in the next year, we have 10 years supply of groundwater stored below our feet.
So groundwater continues to decline.
Sustainability, social capital.
Diversity really matters.
No, we're talking about trying to minimize, in the long-range plan, minimize single occupant vehicle use. Well, we only had really one meeting, and the meeting was to organize and define the priority. And the priority that Wendy and I agreed on with the other members that were at the meeting was to really go to city councils where development is under threat.
Hi.
Oh, okay, this is Josie Gonzalez and this is Pete Aguilar. Oh, and they're running from us in the elevator.
The Blue Crew, better known as the city's water cops, have received thousands of complaints over the last year.
We tried to look into every single one.
Rick Silva runs a response team and says everyone gets a chance to comply.
They decided that they wanted to develop a cradle-to-career continuum or roadmap which identifies key milestones in a child's personal, social, academic, and career readiness. And they did adopt that. And it's a really nicely done chart that shows all of the key milestones that a child needs to achieve to be successful.
Representatives of the Rockefeller family announced that they were divesting their philanthropies, billions of dollars from coal, gas, and oil. And that's pretty amazing if you think about it. There's the first family. The reach of that Jesuit Pope is really beginning to demonstrate.
To give people an access and availability to modes of travel other than the automobile.
Look at the millennials, really kind of my generation, and perhaps those that are a little younger than me. They're looking for a true work-live environment. So they're looking to move back to city centers. And they're looking for places where they don't have to get in their car and drive for 20 or 30 minutes to get somewhere. They're not going to be faced with enormous traffic challenges because of that.
We talk about public outreach, and we talk about it's like voting in Chicago. You want to public outreach early and often, right? Voting in Chicago, they say you want to vote early and often.
Oh, this is we're walking down the hallway. I can videotape you if I want. What's your name? Mark Butala.
You sneaker.
This is a public area. I can videotape and walk around if I'd like, Mark. This is called America.
Last week, the Student Council voted to ban the flag from their student lobby. They said it was to make the area inclusive of all nations.
I think it's important to keep in mind that we don't need everyone to get out of their cars. All you need to do is remove 10% of those vehicles.
Even heard Rahm Emanuel say crisis is a terrible thing to face?
I know, since I've lived here since '78, my son, the moment I knew he was on his way, I really stopped drinking the water. Never drink the water.
I think the thing that we need to do is make absolutely clear that what we're doing as government is our first job is to protect the health and safety of our residents.
I also want to say I resent the fact that the mayor unilaterally changed the agenda without having a motion, a second, or a vote. I expect to have my full time because the mayor pro tem did say this is a free country and you guys are trying to take away our right to free speech. Residential neighborhoods, for example, you could have within walking distance grocery stores, basic commercial services, parks, schools, and to encourage people to walk or allow the opportunity to walk and bike should they so desire. In other words, you never have to leave your general area. She also said that density-related policies in the specific focus area that I was talking about, like Foothill, Southeast Quadrant, are to encourage the intensification and development of areas that are served by transit, to give access and availability to modes of transportation other than the automobile. She was asked to clarify what she meant by this. Would you like to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Okay.
No breaks. No breaks.
We want to hear what he has to say. Let him talk.
Their real objective is to make a permanent change that reduces how much water we use. So they want culture to change, and they feel like it's necessary.
Well, an Upland man could spend 6 months in jail for not maintaining his yard during the drought. Fernand Mogman is facing 2 misdemeanor charges for keeping his lawn brown, not green. City leaders have given him the option of paying fines and fixing it, but he rejected that deal. The case goes to trial Monday.
The fact of the matter is that people have too much space in their houses, and we could just share our space with other family members. We would reduce our housing needs right there. And I think the number of housing units needed is a lot less than people think, because the old standard for housing is basically circa 1980, when people all lived in their own independent apartments or independent housing units. There was no doubling up at that time. And that's probably never going to be seen again in America. We're always going to be, we have assimilation going on in LA right now. Assimilation is a two-way street. And so we're all living to live like Asians with multi-generational families. That's the American way now.
It feels to me like the government is planning for poverty. Long term, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they're planning for poverty.
So, if you will all stand, please. And with the divine beings, and with Bahio himself, let us all take a deep breath and hold it. Remember Bahio, and as you exhale, not yet, together we will breathe life back into Tovanga. The Holy, it is good. Yamanhene.
That's right, LA Sheriff's investigators have quite a massive operation set up out here today. Take a look behind me, you can see what's happening. They've got about 50 officers, also joined by the FBI out here today. And what they're doing is stopping cars along Gary Avenue and showing drivers the composite sketch of the suspect, hoping somebody will recognize him.
Dennis, can you run on an affordable housing platform as a supervisor?
No. Because the base of people who would vote for an affordable housing platform don't live in my community yet. Right? So you've got to create if this is the agenda, you're going to have to create the base from scratch, and then you're going to have to make sure that they vote, and then you're going to have to make sure that I know that they vote.
I want to ride the elevator and go upstairs.
You're going to have to wait until I get authorization.
Because why? Second visitor, see this right here? This says visitor entrance.
Those are my rules, ma'am.
Your rules.
That's what I was told.
This is a public agency.
From the federal employees. Ma'am, you can't just go upstairs.
Why not?
Because you need to wait for me to get authorization.
I'm here in support, strong support for what Sandbag is doing.
In a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated.
I know personal freedom and limited government is a foreign concept to a lot of people on our council. I understand you want to enforce your social norms and your will on everybody. I get that part. But I will not be voting for it. I think you don't understand all the unintended consequences that are created by this type of social engineering.
Today is National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
I don't know if people are aware of how we're generating electricity right now. But the most popular form of electricity generation in California is we're burning three finite resources. Our three finite resources is coal, compressed natural gas, and fossil fuels. These alone, when burned, emit carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrocarbons, and NOx emissions.
All right, Mike. Is that what you want to say?
Yeah. Do you know when we're going to vote you out in 2 years when your term's over.
Listen to what he has to say, guys.
I looked it up on the internet.
Not going to lie.
American citizens only. Took an oath for American citizens.
Well, don't touch him. Don't shook your hand. Don't touch me.
A California Highway Patrol officer holds a woman down and repeatedly punches her. Tonight, Eyewitness News talks exclusively to the man who shot the video.
Suspicious package. Suspicious packages. Suspicious package. Suspicious device. Suspicious phone call. Suspicious activity. Bomb threat. Bomb threat. Bomb threat.
Heavy rain is putting parts of Southern California under a storm scare.
When the mantra is see something, say something. These immigration issues that have a tendency to attack our families that live in our communities. We have an abundance, at least in my neighborhood, we have an abundance of new Americans that are yet to be processed as citizens. And some of them do have families. And these issues do impact and sometimes cause dissolve and separation of family members. And that's why I would prefer to err on the side of caution, because I represent these folks here. Okay.
That's the appropriate.
That would be the appropriate motion.
Oh, that would be the appropriate.
Yes, that's the appropriate motion to have it done today. Have it done today. Thank you. Well, it appears that the motion fails.
Does the city attorney want to address the issue of the mayor signing an amicus brief in the Texas case, even though when that was brought up to be agendized, there was no seconding to the motion to do so?
I sign it, okay, because that's my opinion. That's what I do here, is I represent everybody that lives in the city to the best of my ability.
I'm sorry.
That's why I sign it.
I have to interrupt you, Mayor. That brief in that case has nothing to do with who this council represents. I want to know whether or not you flagrantly misuse your power as mayor.
Again, sure opinion.
I would say a large amount of people. I've counted as many as 27 in a residence directly across the street from me.
I should be allowed to enter this building.
But you're not. You're not going to be allowed entry. You've been identified with a group of protesters
that is
that
wrong.
have been disrupted in the past.
Hey, they're telling us ahead of time how we're going to behave.
But I think people just don't take government seriously. They don't see government in their lives, and I really wish they did.
Hi, how are you, sir? Fine, thanks. Health inspectors, I'm G. This is Inspector Noe. We're just doing a routine inspection going around. In your room, any problems like leaking, damage, mice, rats, or how are you doing?
Why do you got to inspect the inside of the house?
To see if you have violation of health and safety codes of California and Los Angeles County, that we help you.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Can I ask a question? Or?
No, you cannot.
Oh.
The intent is to only conduct an outside or exterior inspection of the property, be able to drive by, look at the front of the house, make sure that it doesn't look like one of these on the pictures that you see, and then the permit would be based on that. Again, I talked about some of the violations that we see, junk cars in the yard, failure to maintain the buildings, weeds growing up high. These are the type of things that we'd be able to drive by and see, and if those things exist on the property, our goal here would be to have them fixed. Weeds growing up high, weeds growing up high, weeds growing up high.
So if the goal of the city is to use less water, then why are we trying to raise a tax to get more water into the city?
Okay, did you bring this information tonight?
I did.
Okay, do you want to wait till after the presentation so we can talk about it? Because you took the liberty of putting it on the table without even telling us about it. Someone brought it to our attention. So if you'd be so kind, is to wait till the second presentation is done, we can get into some of the issues that you want to bring up if you can. Okay?
Why not answer it now?
Because you're not on the agenda right now.
We're still in the question and answer.
We have one more presentation. You're going to take people off track, and I really don't appreciate that. We're here tonight because we have a serious condition in front of us, and we need to discuss it fully.
This was an approved city plan. How is this not part of the discussion?
You brought your own agenda tonight, and we're going with our agenda. So, I really would like to go forward.
But the purpose is for you to discuss and to present. Just hold on. This is not we don't want to have a discussion at this point. We'll start having discussion.
I thought this was a community meeting where we get input.
What I'd like to do is, rather than break into the 3 groups, maybe just do it as a fluid discussion. Anybody that has any concerns related to public safety. The purpose here is not to have a discussion again, but to make sure everybody has an opportunity.
A new bill could soon require more California children to be vaccinated before they enter school. The Senate Education Committee voted today to advance Senate Bill 277. Under the new measure, only vaccinated children will be allowed to attend public and private school. There will also be no kind of immunity. The bill repeals personal belief and religious exemptions.
And, we're 100% behind the climate policy in California in terms of what the governor wants to do.
I think when the governor made the call, he was really
he and his staff, what they were really trying to do is change the culture of California.
What the Air Resources Board wants to do.
Simply because logistics like manufacturing, like healthcare, these are sectors that bring dollars from the outside world. If you think that this sector is free to continue growing in our region, both Air Quality Management District and CARB have got it targeted to slow it down and try to slow it down dramatically. That is their intent, expressed. Paul Granillo, the president of IAB, was on a phone call with somebody with CARB, and the man said very specifically, you are the target, we want to stop the growth of the Inland Empire, period. And one of the things I've been asked to do is to start to alert people that this is about to be a war. This is not about to go gently into the night.
We're going to add 4 million people to this region in the next 25 years. The demographic shifts, the rising cost of commuting, the rising cost of gasoline, energy, is going to kind of probably have people think again about their choices where to live.
Where are all these people going to be coming from? Because a lot of people are leaving California. Businesses have left California. So where are we going to get the increase in population? And schools enrollment have been declining over the years. So where's everybody coming from?
And what we are also observing is that fewer and fewer people are having fewer and fewer kids.
Fewer children are being born. Fertility rates have been cut in half.
So how did you feel when the Border Patrol picked you up?
Me sentí muy segura, me sentí muy contenta por mí, por mi niño y por los que veníamos. La verdad que fue muy bonito ver la patrulla de...
Muchas gracias por asistir. Thank you very much for coming here. Este foro va a ser en español y en inglés. En español vamos a hablar y en inglés. In English, it's going to be in your headset. So this forum is in Spanish and in English. In English in your headsets. In Spanish, we're going to be speaking on the microphone.
We live in America. It should be in English.
More people here speak English and Spanish.
Environmental justice, to make sure a low-income population household and also minorities, their interests are protected.
Are communities that are sometimes threatened or intimidated by giving comment in a language that isn't as comfortable to them. So those are kind of the things that we're thinking about and we're looking at when we're building the high-speed train. Thanks.
And Imperial County, particularly the border crossing, is dear to our heart. We have just recently funded a few projects specific addressing on the border crossing and to reduce the waiting time as cars come in and to reduce the pollution.
What?
And we should ask for next question, please. We would like to give the opportunity to the LA downtown office.
They're letting people crash faster?
But on the other hand, I like trains. I like to get up on a train, I like to walk around, go shake hands. Can't do that on a plane as easily, and you can't do that in your little car.
And for those that aren't familiar with the arcane provisions in state law, in California we actually have the Constitution that says that you have no right to use water if it's wasted or unreasonably used. And in fact, under the law, the state can take away your water rights if you waste or unreasonably use water.
You know, I'm against doing some kind of mandatory thing that the city's then going to enforce. I just don't think that that works. And if we're going to talk about water, I think we need to talk about it in the whole picture, because you know, the cities are currently, and the residents of our city are suffering because of the lack of leadership in Sacramento for the last 20 years when it comes to water storage. And So I mean, I have real problems because Sacramento has failed the citizens of West Covina that we turn around and adopt mandatory water restrictions with punishments, from the city. I have problems with that. So I mean, I won't vote for any of those things.
New at 6 o'clock, an appeals court says police do not have to turn over records of license plates that are electronically scanned. The court agreed with an LA judge who said the records are exempt from disclosure because they relate to law enforcement investigations. The ACLU and Electronic Frontier Foundation were seeking the records of the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department in order to assess the scope of government surveillance. They claim the records are collected indiscriminately and could be used to track anyone, such as political activists.
Thing to keep in mind, we are going to ask everyone to put their recording devices away because we are audio taping this. It will be...
But this is a public meeting. You have a problem with me videotaping a public meeting? Well, I'm sorry that one member of the public showed up and that it's got you guys all riled up.
There's signage there, there's greenery there. It's clear that there is more of a pedestrian feel to the street, and it slows down drivers as they're getting close to it, but it doesn't really impede their movement. It just lets them know, okay, I'm approaching a pedestrian zone. Also narrowing the field of vision and those lanes, looking at how it's used by adding the bike lane here. And again, that helps to slow people down.
This particular building during the recession did not lose its value. It was as expensive to live here as it was before the recession. And the value of this has been so utterly extravagant, it's had the opposite effect. It was meant to be relatively affordable, and its value is through the roof, and people cannot afford to get in there. So choice is an essential subject, I think. It's an essential subject. And as for the question of cost, I think what I said in my comments is that unfortunately we're not building enough of this great housing to actually make it more widely available. It's not that these buildings are any more expensive to make than any others, but they're well located, well designed, next to a lot of facilities and a lot of places that are perceived by people as being amenities, and therefore they bid it to death. If we had 3,000 units of this kind throughout your city, they would have a different kind of presentation in the market. If we only have 300 or 30 or 50, they are just so scarce that their value is just amazing. That's what's going on. And I would hope that we begin to build in the center of West Covina in a denser, walkable, more compact and diverse way.
Is the language wrong? Should it be middle-class housing? Should it be workforce housing? Can you comment on the language of what affordable housing represents?
Yeah, the language absolutely has to change because you've got these built-in assumptions about what affordable housing is. And even though, as Steve says, if you looked at some of the developments of his company now, if we took you there right now, you would not know that they are affordable housing. But also for the vast majority of people in this room and the people that we've been really talking about here tonight, it's not about his projects. It's about how do they afford to buy a house in the neighborhood where you live now. But we get the terms conflated. So yes, middle-class housing.
Maybe I have a suggestion for when you come back at 6. Replace the word sustainability with a word of your choice. And let's discuss it at 6.
It doesn't matter.
Suggest something.
The Highway Patrol is working overtime this holiday weekend to make sure you and your family stay safe. For the next 3 days, officers will be out in force.
So in 2011 or so, I was asked by SCAG to come up with estimates using these surveys, demographic trends. And what I did is I used the surveys are coded by the kind of household, old and young, rich and poor, children, no children, and I rolled those 2011 coefficients by household type to the year 2035 to see what happened as demographics changed. What is the outcome in 2035 for SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments? We have in 2010 more in SCAG, more homes on large lots than the market will demand by 2035. Now, that that figure is a 2035 figure, it's not a figure for today. This is a creeping glacier. In deciding where to live, public transit is important or somewhat important for Americans as a whole. Half of us would like to have the opportunity to use transit, not that we would, but more than 70% of Californians would want that opportunity too.
And in these little, here's an example. I got in Anaheim right here, they're building 20,000 apartments in a very small area where a streetcar is going to take you around everywhere. And if you want to go somewhere farther, you take the Arctic Bullet Train, that new facility they built. I don't want to live like that. And a lot of people I know don't want to live like that.
If we took the market demand, not the planner's demand, or if we took the market demand for people who wanted to live within a half mile of transit, and we know what that demand is from surveys, it's only 25%. It's only 25%. It's only 25%.
They're undertaking things like youth policies, community gardens, walking paths, hiking paths, no smoking open space policies, but those incredible system-wide policy changes. We're looking again at being much, much more data-driven. We know we've got to attach a lot of data to what we do. And we're also looking at systems change. So we're focusing on much more sustainable systems types changes to really kind of make our efforts sustainable.
This book jacket, which I'll talk about in a moment, says it's major development projects have succeeded in reducing the traffic and carbon dioxide emissions by as much as 40%. You can write that into the code for the downtown area. And when we do the citywide code, hopefully following the adoption of the general plan, we can write into the code for the general plan. So it's going to be a combination of things. It's going to be a combination of stakeholders coming together, taking charge.
Here is something that nobody needs. Black water coming out of faucets in Gardena, and residents say not enough is being done to fix this problem.
A water main break created a sinkhole in front of a home in Granada Hills this morning.
Welcome news right now for residents of a Beverly Grove neighborhood. Public Works crews just turned the water back on after a pipe burst there overnight. And this was the scene while many of us were sleeping.
East LA neighborhood is cleaning up after a water main broke overnight near Lombardi and Dartmouth.
And tonight the water is back on and service restored to people living in the Hollywood Hills after a water main break caused some major flooding there earlier today. Now, while the water is on, the LA DWP says that Dick Street will be closed until crews can get in there to resurface the road tomorrow morning. The break sent water rushing into the neighborhood, affecting about 100 customers. Crews are cleaning up this morning after a water main break causes massive flooding in a sinkhole along the 1200 block of North Formosa Avenue in West Hollywood. Eyewitness News reporter Marco Robles is live at the scene where, for one resident, it's an experience he has had to go through once before.
Gasp from everyone there at one moment when they announced 8 to 10 million gallons all happening throughout the day. And it sure did, towering over this well-known stretch of Sunset Boulevard for about 4 hours. What a sight, front and center outside Bel Air's Marymount High School, and on the south side, UCLA.
Could you comment on this? There was an LA Times story 2 days ago about what they called toilet to death. One major answer. Could you comment on that?
That we agreed on where we were trying to go so that we could prioritize scarce resources.
The reason this is happening is because the federal government is setting up the grants and loan system. So as you mentioned, how are we going to pay for this? Well, the way you pay for it is by setting it up so that you can get loans and grants.
But you haven't secured the funding for any of these ideas.
You can't until you have the idea on paper.
So you're going to change the way our lives, the way we live our lives in West Covina to accommodate the requirements for federal funding.
That's exactly
That's
it.
what you're doing.
It.
When we put this long-range transportation plan and the sustainable communities together, this has a 25 years horizon, up to 2040. And we have about $500 billion investment in transportation infrastructure.
In addition, as part of the Assembly Bill 32, or the move to cap greenhouse gas emissions and the cap and trade program that was established along with that, revenues are coming in higher than had originally been anticipated. The last auction was in February, netted about $650 million.
Something to consider, because we're talking about keeping people work right where they're at, sticking around, not getting on their cars and driving around, so that could be something to consider.
Is that what we're talking about?
Lennar project is coming in with 450 new apartments, higher end, not ultra high, but we're looking at, probably $2,000, $2,100 for 800 to a little over 1,000 square foot.
Now, we just learned that the suspect is 30-year-old Francis Pusok. He's wanted for identity theft, and when deputies tried to arrest him at his home in Apple Valley, he allegedly took off in a car. He then allegedly stole that horse from a group of people east of Apple Valley. Soon after, the beating took place.
All right, look at this. A bear sighting in Arcadia caused a school lockdown this morning. Highland Oaks Elementary is near the San Gabriel Mountains. It was locked down after bears were spotted at a nearby backyard. That lockdown is now lifted.
Air Force One landed this morning in Palm Springs, where the president headed straight to the golf course.